He told everyone his mother was dead. Then she showed up at his wedding. Alara, a woman whose face was a roadmap of time, sat perched on the edge of her worn armchair, the faded floral pattern a testament to years of use. In her hands, she held an invitation. Its crisp edges and elegant script a stark contrast to the well-worn objects that surrounded her. The invitation announced the impending nuptials of her son, Daniel, a name that echoed through the chambers of her heart, stirring a bittersweet symphony of memory and regret. 20 years had passed since she last gazed upon his face. 20 years since he bid farewell to their quaint town, promising a future filled with success and prosperity. A future that, it seemed, had no room for his aging mother. Alara, a woman of simple pleasures and unwavering devotion, had always found contentment in the gentle rhythm of her days. Her life was a tapestry woven with the threads of tending her bountiful garden, the aroma of freshly baked bread wafting through her cozy kitchen, and the cherished letters from her son, each one a lifeline to the world he now inhabited. Those letters, filled with vivid descriptions of city life and promises of visits that never materialized, were her window to a world that seemed galaxies away from her tranquil existence. They painted a picture of a son who was thriving, a son who was building a life she could only dream of. But as the years unfurled, the letters became sporadic, the promises faded like whispers in the wind, until they ceased altogether, leaving Alara enveloped in a silence as profound and vast as the starlit sky. The arrival of the invitation, after 2 decades of silence, was akin to a message from a long-lost world. It ignited a maelstrom of emotions within her: surprise, confusion, a flicker of hope rekindled in the embers of her heart, and a deep-seated resentment that she had tried, in vain, to bury beneath layers of stoicism. Why now, after all these years of absence, did he seek to reconnect? Was it a pang of guilt, a sense of obligation, or perhaps something more sinister lurking beneath the surface? Alara rose from her chair, her joints protesting with a symphony of creaks and pops, and moved towards the dusty mirror that adorned her humble living room. Her reflection stared back at her, a woman etched with the passage of time, her once vibrant eyes now clouded with age and a lingering sadness. Her hair, once the color of midnight, was now a wispy halo of white, framing a face etched with the lines of a life well lived. Was this the face he wished to see at his wedding? A stark reminder of the life he had left behind, a life that perhaps no longer fit into the narrative he had crafted for himself? Despite the turmoil that raged within her, a persistent voice, soft yet unwavering, urged her to accept the invitation. It spoke of a mother's love, a love that transcended the boundaries of time and distance, a love that yearned for closure, for a glimpse of the son she had lost and the man he had become. With a sigh that carried the weight of years, Alara decided to embark on this unexpected journey, unaware of the extraordinary events that awaited her. She would attend the wedding, not as a relic of the past, but as a mother seeking to reclaim her place in her son's life. The journey to the city was a jarring experience for Alara, a stark contrast to the tranquil rhythm of her rural life. The cacophony of urban sounds assaulted her ears, the relentless honking of cars, the rumble of buses, the distant sirens wailing like banshees in the night. Towering buildings, steel and glass behemoths, scraped the sky, casting long shadows that seemed to swallow her whole. The hurried pace of life, a frenetic dance of rushing bodies and hurried footsteps, left her feeling disoriented and overwhelmed. Clutching her worn handbag, a relic from a bygone era, she navigated the bustling streets, feeling like a small, insignificant leaf adrift in a raging torrent. The city, with its overwhelming energy and impersonal vastness, seemed to mock her simple existence, her quiet life in the countryside. The wedding venue, a grand hotel that exuded opulence and extravagance, was a world apart from the humble dwelling she called home. As she stepped into the lavishly decorated hall, a wave of unease washed over her. Dressed in her best attire, a simple dress that had seen better days, she felt out of place amidst the sea of elegantly dressed guests, their attire a symphony of designer labels and shimmering jewels. She spotted Daniel across the room, a beacon of familiarity in a sea of strangers. He was engaged in conversation with a group of people, his laughter echoing through the hall, a sound that both warmed and ached her heart. He looked successful, confident, a man of the world, a far cry from the shy boy she remembered. Alara's heart swelled with a mixture of pride and a strange sense of loss. He was hers, yet he felt like a stranger, a man she barely recognized. As she approached him, a hush fell over the group. All eyes turned to her, their expressions ranging from curiosity to thinly veiled disdain. Daniel's face paled, his smile faltering like a flickering candle in a sudden draft. He looked at her with a mixture of shock and something akin to shame, a look that pierced her heart like a shard of ice. "Mother, what are you doing here?" he asked, his voice strained, the warmth she remembered replaced by a chilling formality. Alara felt a wave of humiliation wash over her, the blood rushing to her cheeks, her hands trembling. I received an invitation," she stammered, holding up the card as if it were a shield against his rejection. Daniel's eyes darted around nervously, seeking an escape from this unexpected confrontation. "Yes, well, there must have been some mistake. This is a private event." Alara's heart sank, the flicker of hope that had sustained her through the long journey extinguished like a flame doused in water. "A mistake?" she repeated, her voice barely a whisper, the word echoing the emptiness that now consumed her. A woman, impeccably dressed and radiating an air of authority, stepped forward, her presence commanding attention. "Daniel, darling, who is this?" she asked, her voice dripping with condescension, her eyes assessing Alara with a mixture of curiosity and disdain. "This is Alara," Daniel said, his voice hesitant, his gaze flitting between the woman and his mother, unable to meet either's eyes. My former nanny." Alara felt a sharp sting of betrayal, a wound that cut deeper than any rejection she had ever experienced. Former nanny? Was that all she was to him now? A relic from a past he was eager to erase, a chapter he wished to close? The woman, who Alara assumed was Daniel's fiancée, raised a perfectly sculpted eyebrow, her expression a mask of incredulity. "Nanny? How quaint. Well, I'm sure you understand this is a rather exclusive gathering. Perhaps you could wait outside." Alara felt a surge of anger, a fiery defiance that belied her frail appearance. "I am his mother," she declared, her voice trembling but firm, her words echoing through the hall, shattering the facade of polite indifference. The woman's eyes widened in disbelief, her composure momentarily shaken. A murmur rippled through the crowd, a wave of whispers and startled gasps. Daniel's face flushed crimson, his shame and embarrassment palpable. He grabbed Alara's arm, his grip surprisingly strong, and pulled her aside, his voice a harsh whisper that cut through the murmuring crowd. "Mother, please, you're embarrassing me. Just go." Alara looked at him, her eyes filled with a pain that he seemed unable to comprehend, a pain that mirrored the depth of her love for him. "Embarrassing you?" she asked, her voice laced with disbelief. "After all these years, after all I've done for you, this is how you treat me?" Daniel avoided her gaze, his eyes fixed on some distant point in the crowd. "It's complicated," he muttered, his voice a jumble of excuses and justifications. "Just go, please. I'll explain later." Alara stared at him, her heart breaking into 1,000 pieces, each shard reflecting the shattered image of the son she thought she knew. She realized then that there was nothing left to explain. The son she knew, the son she loved, was gone, replaced by a stranger who was ashamed of his own mother, a stranger who had built his life on a foundation of lies. Tears pricked at Alara's eyes, hot and stinging, but she refused to let them fall. She straightened her back, her innate dignity returning like a forgotten shield, a strength forged in the fires of years of quiet resilience. "You don't need to explain anything, Daniel," she said, her voice surprisingly steady despite the turmoil that raged within her. "I understand perfectly." She turned to leave, her head held high, a solitary figure amidst the opulent surroundings, her simple dress a stark contrast to the finery of the guests. But just as she reached the edge of the crowd, a voice, clear and insistent, stopped her in her tracks. "Wait!" A young woman, her face etched with concern, stepped forward from the throng of guests. Her eyes, wide and questioning, were fixed on Daniel, her voice laced with a mixture of confusion and apprehension. "Daniel, what's going on? Who is this woman?" Daniel hesitated, his eyes darting between the young woman and Alara, his face a mask of indecision. "This is Alara. She's no one important." The young woman frowned, her brow furrowed in disbelief. "No one important? Daniel, you're acting strangely. Introduce us properly." Daniel's face paled, his carefully constructed composure crumbling under the weight of his lies. "This is Alara," he mumbled reluctantly, his voice barely a whisper, his eyes unable to meet the young woman's gaze. "My mother." The young woman's eyes widened, her expression a mixture of shock and disbelief. "Your mother? But you told me she was dead." A collective gasp rippled through the crowd, a wave of astonishment and disapproval. Alara stared at Daniel, her heart pounding in her chest like a drum, her mind reeling from this new revelation. He had lied about her death? Why, what possible reason could he have for such a cruel deception? Daniel looked like a trapped animal, his eyes darting around the room, seeking an escape from the web of his own lies. I can explain," he stammered, his voice cracking under the weight of his guilt. "Explain what?" the young woman demanded, her voice trembling with anger and hurt. "That you lied to me? That you abandoned your own mother? That you built your life on a foundation of deceit?" Daniel's gaze fell to the floor, his shame and remorse palpable. "It's not that simple," he muttered, his voice barely audible. "Oh, I'm sure it's not," the young woman retorted, her voice laced with sarcasm. "But you're going to tell me the truth right here, right now?" Daniel opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. He looked around helplessly, his eyes pleading for understanding, but all he found were judging stares and whispers of disapproval. The crowd, once eager to bask in his reflected glory, now turned on him, their admiration replaced by contempt. Alara watched the scene unfold, a strange sense of detachment washing over her. She felt like an observer, watching a play unfold on a distant stage, the actors oblivious to her presence. The pain of her son's rejection was still there, a dull ache in her chest, but it was overshadowed by a growing sense of bewilderment. Why had Daniel created this elaborate lie? What was he hiding? What dark secrets lurked beneath the surface of his carefully crafted persona? The young woman, her patience wearing thin, turned to Alara, her expression softening as she recognized the pain and confusion in the older woman's eyes. "Ma'am," she said, her voice gentle and compassionate, "can you please tell me what's going on?" Alara hesitated, her mind a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. Should she reveal the truth? Expose her son's lies and risk further humiliation and rejection? A part of her, the mother in her, wanted to protect him, to shield him from the consequences of his actions. But another part, the part that was tired of being silenced and ignored, the part that yearned for recognition and acknowledgement, urged her to speak. With a deep breath, Alara decided to tell her story. She would no longer be a silent spectator in her own life. She would reclaim her voice, her identity, her place in her son's world. She would speak her truth, no matter the consequences. Alara stepped forward, her frail figure standing tall amidst the opulent surroundings. Her voice, though trembling slightly, resonated with a newfound strength and clarity. She began to recount her life with Daniel, her words painting a vivid picture of their shared past. She spoke of their happy days in the small town, their modest home filled with laughter and love. She described Daniel as a boy, his eyes sparkling with curiosity, his heart filled with dreams. She recounted his departure for the city, the bittersweet farewell, the promises of a bright future, and the letters that kept their connection alive, at least for a while. She spoke of the dwindling correspondence, the fading promises, the years of silence that stretched into an eternity of unanswered questions and unspoken pain. And finally, she revealed the unexpected invitation, the flicker of hope that had led her to this grand hall, only to be met with rejection and humiliation. She spoke of her love for her son, a love that had endured despite his neglect and abandonment. She expressed her disappointment at his choices, his pursuit of a life that had no room for her, his shame at his humble origins. And she confessed her confusion at his lies, his elaborate deception that had shattered the last vestiges of their connection. The guests listened in stunned silence, their initial judgment replaced by a mixture of sympathy and outrage. Daniel's fiancée, her face pale with shock and anger, stared at him with a look of utter betrayal. The carefully constructed facade of their perfect life, the fairy tale wedding, the picture-perfect couple, all lay in ruins, shattered by the weight of his lies. When Alara finished her story, a heavy silence fell over the room, broken only by the occasional sniffle and gasp. It was a silence that spoke volumes, a silence that condemned Daniel's actions more eloquently than any words could. The young woman, her eyes filled with tears of anger and hurt, turned to Daniel, her voice trembling with emotion. "Daniel," she said, her voice barely a whisper, "I can't believe you would do this. To your own mother? To me?" Daniel looked at her, his eyes filled with a mixture of shame and desperation. I never meant to hurt anyone," he stammered, his voice cracking under the weight of his guilt. I just wanted to create a better life for myself." "A better life built on lies?" the young woman challenged, her voice rising in anger. "A life where you deny your own mother, your own past." Daniel's shoulders slumped, his body weighed down by the burden of his deception. "I know it was wrong," he mumbled, his voice barely audible. "But I was ashamed of my background, of where I came from. I wanted to fit in, to be accepted." "And you thought the best way to do that was to pretend your mother was dead?" the young woman asked incredulously, her voice filled with disbelief. Daniel winced, his face contorted in pain. I made a mistake. A terrible mistake." The young woman looked at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and disappointment. "You certainly did," she said quietly, her voice heavy with the weight of his betrayal. Then, she turned and walked away, her footsteps echoing in the sudden silence, each step a testament to the finality of her decision. Alara watched her go, her heart aching for the young woman's pain. She had been deceived and betrayed, just like Alara herself. She understood the depth of her hurt, the shattering of her dreams, the loss of trust that would be difficult to rebuild. Daniel stood there, his head bowed, his body trembling, his world crumbling around him. He looked utterly lost and alone, a man stripped bare of his pretense, his true self exposed for all to see. Alara's anger melted away, replaced by a wave of pity. He was her son, after all, and despite his actions, she couldn't help but feel for him. She walked towards him, her steps slow and deliberate, her presence a beacon of comfort in the storm of his despair. "Daniel," she said softly, her voice filled with compassion. "Why?" He looked up at her, his eyes filled with tears of shame and regret. "I'm so sorry, Mother," he choked out, his voice raw with emotion. "I never meant to hurt you. I wanted a different life." Alara placed a hand on his arm, her touch offering a silent reassurance, a mother's unwavering love. "I know, son. I know." He looked at her, his expression pleading, his eyes searching for a glimmer of forgiveness. "Can you ever forgive me?" Alara sighed, her heart heavy with the weight of his betrayal. Forgiveness wouldn't come easy, but he was her son, and she couldn't deny the love that still flickered in her heart, a love that transcended his flaws and mistakes. "It will take time, Daniel," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "But I'm willing to try." Daniel's face crumpled with relief, his tears flowing freely now, a release of the pent-up emotions he had suppressed for so long. He embraced his mother, his hug tight and desperate, clinging to her as if she were a lifeline in a stormy sea. Alara held him close, tears streaming down her face, her own pain mingling with his. It was a hug of reconciliation, a hug of a mother's unwavering love, a hug that transcended years of hurt and disappointment. The guests watched the scene unfold, their hearts touched by the raw emotion, the genuine display of love and forgiveness. Some wiped away tears, their own experiences resonating with the scene before them. Others offered hesitant smiles of support, acknowledging the courage it took for both mother and son to reach this point of reconciliation. Alara pulled away from Daniel, her eyes meeting his, her gaze filled with a mixture of sadness and hope. "Now," she said, her voice firm but gentle, "introduce me to your friends and tell them the truth." Daniel nodded, his eyes filled with newfound resolve, a determination to make amends for his past mistakes. He turned to the crowd, his voice clear and strong, his gaze steady and unwavering. "This is Alara," he announced, his voice echoing through the hall, his words carrying the weight of his newfound honesty. "My mother, and I'm proud of her." A wave of applause erupted, filling the hall with a warmth that had been absent just moments before. It was a spontaneous expression of support, a collective acknowledgement of Alara's strength and Daniel's newfound courage. Alara smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes, a smile that reflected the triumph of love over deceit. It was a small victory, but a significant one. She had reclaimed her place in her son's life, not as a hidden shame, but as a source of pride. As the initial shock of the revelation subsided and the guests gradually dispersed, a sense of unease settled over the once vibrant hall. The wedding, meticulously planned and orchestrated, now lay in tatters, a casualty of Daniel's web of deceit. The guests, initially drawn together by the promise of celebration, were now united by a shared sense of discomfort and uncertainty. Daniel's fiancée, Isabella, retreated to a private room, her carefully constructed composure crumbling under the weight of his betrayal. The revelation of his lies had shattered her world, leaving her feeling lost and vulnerable. Her friends, a group of impeccably dressed socialites, hovered around her, offering words of comfort and thinly veiled condemnation of Daniel's actions. The wedding planner, a woman with nerves of steel and a reputation for managing any crisis, found herself facing an unprecedented challenge. The carefully orchestrated event, the culmination of months of planning and preparation, had imploded in a spectacular fashion. She frantically tried to salvage the situation, conferring with the hotel staff, rearranging the seating arrangements to accommodate Alara, and attempting to redirect the guests' attention to the festivities. However, the damage was irreparable. The atmosphere was thick with tension, the celebratory mood irrevocably shattered. The guests, their initial excitement replaced by a mixture of curiosity and judgment, whispered amongst themselves, their eyes darting between Alara, Daniel, and the absent Isabella. The wedding ceremony, scheduled to begin shortly, was postponed indefinitely. The officiant, a jovial man with a booming voice and a repertoire of heartwarming anecdotes, stood awkwardly by the altar, his cheerful demeanor replaced by a look of concern and uncertainty. The musicians, hired to provide a romantic soundtrack to the event, packed away their instruments, their melodies silenced by the prevailing tension. The caterers, oblivious to the unfolding drama, continued to prepare the lavish feast, their culinary creations now a stark contrast to the emotional turmoil that gripped the guests. The wedding cake, a towering masterpiece of sugar and frosting, stood untouched, its symbolic significance lost in the chaos. As the hours passed, the guests gradually began to depart, their farewells tinged with awkwardness and pity. The once vibrant hall, now filled with the remnants of a celebration that never truly began, echoed with the silence of disappointment and unanswered questions. The wedding, a symbol of new beginnings and joyous unions, had become a casualty of Daniel's lies. The carefully crafted facade of his perfect life had crumbled, revealing the fragile foundation of deceit upon which it was built. The consequences of his actions rippled through the event, leaving a trail of shattered expectations and broken trust. In the aftermath of the revelation, Isabella found herself grappling with a whirlwind of emotions. The initial shock and anger gave way to a profound sense of betrayal and a deep sadness for the life she thought she had. She had been drawn to Daniel's charm and success, blinded by the image he had projected, unaware of the dark secrets he harbored. She questioned her own judgment, wondering how she could have been so deceived. She felt a sense of shame, realizing that she had been complicit in his charade, her own desire for a picture-perfect life blinding her to the truth. But amidst the pain and confusion, a new strength emerged within her. She realized that she deserved more than a life built on lies, that she was worthy of love and respect, that she had the power to choose her own path. She decided to confront Daniel, not to seek reconciliation, but to express her disappointment and to reclaim her own agency. She found him in a quiet corner of the hotel, his face etched with remorse and despair. "Daniel," she said, her voice steady and resolute, "I came here to tell you that I'm not angry. I'm disappointed." She spoke of the life they had planned together, the dreams they had shared, the future she had envisioned. She expressed her sadness at the loss of those dreams, the shattering of their shared vision. But she also spoke of her newfound strength, her determination to move forward, to create a life based on truth and authenticity. She told him that she forgave him, not for his sake, but for her own, so that she could let go of the past and embrace the future. Daniel listened in silence, his head bowed in shame. He acknowledged his mistakes, his voice filled with regret and remorse. He thanked her for her forgiveness, for her strength, for showing him the way forward. Isabella left the hotel, her heart heavy but her spirit light. She had faced her pain, confronted her betrayer, and reclaimed her own power. She walked away from the wreckage of her shattered dreams, ready to embrace a new chapter in her life, a chapter filled with hope and possibility. In the aftermath of the dramatic revelation and the implosion of Daniel's carefully constructed life, an unexpected bond began to blossom between Alara and Isabella. Initially, their interactions were characterized by a palpable tension, a mixture of resentment and suspicion. Isabella saw Alara as an unwelcome intrusion into her world, a symbol of the life Daniel had tried to conceal. Alara, in turn, viewed Isabella with a mixture of pity and apprehension, recognizing the young woman's pain and vulnerability. However, as the dust settled and the initial shock subsided, a grudging respect began to emerge between the two women. They found themselves drawn together by a shared sense of betrayal, a common experience of being deceived by the man they both loved. One evening, as the hotel emptied and the remnants of the ill-fated wedding were cleared away, Alara and Isabella found themselves alone in the quiet lounge. The silence was broken by Isabella, her voice hesitant and uncertain. "He told me you were a simple woman," she confessed, her eyes fixed on the swirling patterns in her untouched glass of wine. "He made it sound like a bad thing, something to be ashamed of." Alara smiled sadly, her eyes reflecting a lifetime of quiet strength and resilience. "I am a simple woman, Isabella. I always have been. But that doesn't mean my life is without value, without meaning." Isabella nodded, her gaze meeting Alara's for the first time, a flicker of understanding dawning in her eyes. "I see that now. I see the strength in you, the resilience. He was foolish to be ashamed of you, to try to erase you from his life." Alara reached out and gently touched Isabella's hand, her touch offering comfort and reassurance. "He was lost, child, trying to find his way in a world that values appearances over truth, a world that often forgets the importance of genuine connections." Over the next few days, their bond deepened, nurtured by shared meals, quiet conversations, and a growing understanding of the man who had brought them together. Alara spoke of her simple joys, her love for her garden, the satisfaction of nurturing life from the soil, the sense of community she found in her small town. She shared stories of Daniel as a boy, his laughter echoing through the fields, his eyes filled with wonder at the world around him. Isabella, in turn, revealed her own insecurities, the pressure to maintain a perfect image, the constant striving for social acceptance, the emptiness she felt despite her material wealth. She spoke of her dreams, her aspirations, the yearning for a life that was more than just a carefully curated facade. Alara listened with compassion, offering words of wisdom and understanding. She saw in Isabella a young woman yearning for authenticity, for a connection that went beyond the superficiality of her social circle. "You deserve more than a life built on lies, Isabella," Alara told her, her voice filled with gentle conviction. "You deserve someone who sees your true worth, who loves you for who you are, not for what you represent." Isabella nodded, tears glistening in her eyes, her heart touched by Alara's genuine concern. "I know," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "Thank you, Alara." Their connection became a source of strength for both women. Alara, initially alone and isolated in the unfamiliar city, found a sense of belonging in Isabella's company. Isabella, disillusioned and heartbroken, found solace in Alara's wisdom and unconditional acceptance. Their relationship, born out of betrayal and disappointment, blossomed into an unexpected friendship, a testament to the power of empathy and shared experience. They found common ground in their love for Daniel, a love that transcended his flaws and mistakes, a love that held the potential for healing and redemption. As the days turned into weeks, their bond grew stronger, a beacon of hope in the wreckage of Daniel's deceit. They were two women from different worlds brought together by a shared desire for truth and authenticity. Their friendship, an unexpected gift in the midst of chaos, became a testament to the enduring power of human connection. They supported each other through the difficult process of healing and moving forward. Alara, with her quiet strength and unwavering faith, helped Isabella navigate the emotional turmoil of the broken engagement. Isabella, in turn, used her resources and connections to help Alara navigate the unfamiliar city, ensuring she had a comfortable place to stay and access to anything she needed. They explored the city together, visiting museums and art galleries, strolling through parks and gardens, discovering hidden gems that Daniel, in his pursuit of social status, had overlooked. They shared meals in cozy cafes, their conversations filled with laughter and shared experiences, their bond deepening with each passing day. Their friendship became a symbol of hope and resilience, a testament to the power of women to support and uplift each other, even in the face of adversity. It was a reminder that true connection transcends age, social status, and life experiences. It was a bond forged in the fires of betrayal, a friendship that would endure long after the wounds of the past had healed. The weeks following the aborted wedding were a time of reckoning for Daniel. The consequences of his deception rippled through his life, shattering the carefully constructed facade he had built over the years. The news of his lies spread like wildfire through his social circles, tarnishing his reputation and alienating those who had once admired and envied him. Business associates, once eager to partner with the rising star, now distanced themselves, fearing their association with him would damage their own reputations. Invitations to exclusive events, once a staple of his social calendar, dried up, replaced by whispers and averted gazes. The social circles he had so desperately sought to penetrate now closed ranks, excluding him from their gatherings, their loyalty evaporating in the face of his disgrace. Friends, once eager to bask in his reflected glory, now whispered behind his back, their laughter tinged with mockery and disdain. The superficial bonds he had forged, based on shared interests and social climbing, proved fragile and fleeting, dissolving in the face of adversity. Isabella, despite her own hurt and disappointment, proved to be a woman of unexpected strength and resolve. She publicly broke off their engagement, refusing to be associated with a man who valued appearances over truth and family. Her decision, while painful, earned her the respect and admiration of those who had witnessed Daniel's betrayal. It was a public declaration of her own integrity, a refusal to compromise her values for the sake of social standing or material comfort. Daniel, stripped of his social standing and facing the scorn of his peers, found himself isolated and alone. The life he had so desperately sought to create, a life built on a foundation of lies and pretense, crumbled around him like a house of cards in a strong wind. The emptiness he had tried to fill with material possessions and social connections now yawned before him, a vast and echoing void, a stark reminder of the true connections he had sacrificed in his pursuit of acceptance. He retreated to his luxurious penthouse apartment, a symbol of his success now transformed into a gilded cage. The opulent furnishings, the breathtaking views, the state-of-the-art technology, all seemed to mock him, their emptiness a reflection of his own hollow existence. In the depths of his despair, he reached out to Alara, his voice trembling with shame and regret. He confessed his mistakes, his voice cracking with emotion, his words tumbling over each other in a torrent of remorse. He spoke of the emptiness he felt, the realization that his pursuit of a hollow image had cost him everything that truly mattered: his family, his friends, his integrity. Alara listened with a heavy heart, her love for her son battling with her disappointment at his choices. She saw the genuine remorse in his eyes, the pain of a man who had lost his way and was now desperately seeking redemption. She recognized the lost boy in the man before her, the boy who had once dreamed of a life filled with meaning and purpose, the boy who had lost his way in the pursuit of empty accolades. "Daniel," she said softly, her voice filled with compassion and understanding, "you cannot undo the past, but you can learn from it. You can choose to build a new life, a life based on truth and authenticity, a life that honors your true self." Daniel nodded, tears streaming down his face, his body racked with sobs. "I know, Mother, I know, but I don't know where to start. I've made such a mess of everything." Alara took his hand, her touch offering comfort and strength, a lifeline in the storm of his despair. "Start with the truth, Daniel. Start with yourself. Start with us." Daniel looked at her, his eyes filled with a glimmer of hope, a spark of recognition. He knew the road to redemption would be long and difficult, but with his mother by his side, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. He would rebuild his life, brick by brick, on a foundation of honesty and integrity. He would reclaim the values he had abandoned, the values that truly mattered: family, community, authenticity. The climactic event, the public exposure of his lies and the subsequent fallout, had stripped him bare, leaving him vulnerable and exposed. But it had also opened his eyes to the shallowness of the life he had created, the emptiness of his pursuits. It was a painful awakening, a brutal confrontation with the consequences of his choices. But it was also a necessary one. It was the catalyst for change, the beginning of his journey towards redemption. He realized that he had been living a lie, not only to others but also to himself. He had denied his true self, his roots, his family, in a desperate attempt to fit into a world that valued appearances over substance. He had chased after empty accolades and superficial connections, neglecting the true treasures in his life: the love of his mother, the genuine friendships he had abandoned, the simple joys he had forgotten. Now, stripped of his pretense and faced with the consequences of his actions, he was finally ready to confront his past, to acknowledge his mistakes, and to embark on a new path, a path guided by truth, integrity, and a newfound appreciation for the things that truly mattered. The days following the disastrous wedding and the subsequent fallout were a whirlwind of activity and emotion. Alara, with her newfound ally Isabella, took charge of the situation, guiding Daniel through the wreckage of his shattered life. They worked tirelessly to mend the fractured relationships, to rebuild the bridges he had burned in his pursuit of a false image, and to help him find a path towards redemption. Alara, with her quiet wisdom and unwavering love, became Daniel's anchor, her presence a constant reminder of the values he had abandoned. She encouraged him to face the consequences of his actions, to apologize to those he had hurt, and to seek forgiveness, not just from others, but also from himself. She reminded him of the inherent goodness within him, the kind and compassionate boy she had raised, the man he could still be. Isabella, despite her own hurt and disappointment, proved to be a valuable ally. She used her social connections and influence to mitigate the damage to Daniel's reputation, speaking on his behalf and vouching for his sincerity. She contacted former business associates, explaining the circumstances and emphasizing Daniel's remorse and commitment to making amends. She also helped him navigate the legal and financial complexities that arose from the broken engagement, ensuring a fair and amicable separation, protecting both her own interests and ensuring Daniel wasn't unfairly taken advantage of. Together, Alara and Isabella helped Daniel confront his past mistakes and begin the arduous task of rebuilding his life. They encouraged him to reconnect with his roots, to rediscover the simple joys he had abandoned in his pursuit of material wealth and social status. They reminded him of the passions he had once held dear, the hobbies he had neglected, the creative pursuits that had brought him joy. They organized a small gathering at Alara's modest home, inviting those who had been closest to Daniel before his rise to fame and fortune. Old friends, childhood neighbors, and former colleagues gathered around him, offering their support and forgiveness. They shared stories of their own struggles and triumphs, reminding him that he was not alone in his journey towards redemption. The atmosphere at Alara's home was a stark contrast to the opulent wedding reception. The simple food, prepared with love by Alara and her neighbors, tasted richer and more satisfying than any catered feast. The laughter, genuine and heartfelt, filled the small house with a warmth that had been absent from Daniel's life for years. The conversations were filled with genuine connection, shared memories, and heartfelt support. Daniel spoke to his friends, his voice raw with emotion, expressing his regret for his past actions and his gratitude for their unwavering support. He spoke of his newfound appreciation for the simple things in life, the value of true connections, and the importance of authenticity. He acknowledged his mistakes, his shame and remorse evident in his voice, but also expressed his determination to make amends and to live a life worthy of their trust and friendship. His friends listened with open hearts, their love for him undiminished by his mistakes. They offered words of encouragement, sharing stories of their own struggles and triumphs, reminding him that he was not alone in his journey towards redemption. They spoke of the Daniel they knew, the kind and compassionate friend they had always cherished. The man they knew was still there beneath the layers of pretense and misguided ambition. The gathering was a turning point for Daniel. He felt a sense of belonging, a connection to something real and meaningful. He realized that true wealth lay not in material possessions or social status, but in the love and support of those who truly cared for him. He saw the genuine affection in the eyes of his friends, the forgiveness in their smiles, and the unwavering love in his mother's gaze. He embraced his mother, his heart overflowing with gratitude for her unwavering love and guidance. He thanked Isabella for her strength and compassion, acknowledging her role in his journey towards redemption. He expressed his gratitude to his friends, acknowledging their unwavering support and the second chance they were offering him. The conflict resolution was not a single event, but an ongoing process. It was a journey of healing, forgiveness, and rediscovery. It was a testament to the power of love, friendship, and the enduring strength of the human spirit. It was a process that would require continuous effort, humility, and a commitment to living a life of integrity and authenticity. Daniel knew that he had a long road ahead of him, but he was no longer alone. He had the love and support of his mother, the friendship and understanding of Isabella, and the unwavering loyalty of his true friends. He was ready to face the challenges ahead, to rebuild his life, and to become the man he was always meant to be. The gathering at Alara's house marked a significant turning point for Daniel. It was a symbolic return to his roots, a shedding of the pretense and artifice that had defined his life for so long. He began to see the world through new eyes, appreciating the simple joys and genuine connections he had once taken for granted. The warmth and acceptance he experienced in his mother's humble home, surrounded by people who loved him unconditionally, contrasted sharply with the cold and superficial world he had inhabited in the city. He started spending more time with his mother, listening to her stories of the past, learning about the family history he had once dismissed as irrelevant. He discovered a rich tapestry of stories about his ancestors, their struggles and triumphs, their resilience and love. He learned about his grandparents' immigration journey, their hard work and sacrifices to build a better life for their children. He heard tales of his own childhood, stories he had forgotten, moments of joy and laughter that rekindled a sense of wonder and innocence within him. He rediscovered the beauty of their small town, the sense of community and belonging that he had craved in the anonymity of the city. He strolled through the streets, greeting familiar faces, exchanging friendly banter with shopkeepers and neighbors. He visited the local farmers' market, marveling at the abundance of fresh produce, the vibrant colors and earthy aromas. He reconnected with the natural world, hiking through the surrounding hills, breathing in the fresh air, and marveling at the beauty of the changing seasons. He also reconnected with his childhood passions, the hobbies and interests he had abandoned in his pursuit of success. He dusted off his old easel and paints, setting up a makeshift studio in his mother's attic. He started painting again, his brushstrokes capturing the vibrant colors of the natural world he had once ignored. He found a sense of peace and fulfillment in the creative process, expressing his emotions and experiences through art. He joined a local hiking group, exploring the trails and forests he had once considered beneath him. He discovered a newfound appreciation for the natural world, the tranquility of the forests, the challenge of the trails, and the camaraderie of fellow hikers. He found joy in the physical exertion, the sense of accomplishment, and the connection to the earth. He found a sense of purpose in helping others, volunteering at a local community center, mentoring young people who were struggling to find their way. He used his experiences, both the triumphs and the failures, to guide them, encouraging them to embrace their true selves and to pursue their dreams with integrity. He shared his story of ambition and deceit, of loss and redemption, hoping to inspire them to make choices that aligned with their values. He even started a small business using his skills and experience to help local businesses thrive. He offered consulting services, helping small businesses develop marketing strategies, improve their online presence, and navigate the challenges of the modern marketplace. He found satisfaction in contributing to the community, in using his talents to make a positive impact. His life was no longer defined by material wealth or social status. It was defined by authenticity, by genuine connections, and by a newfound sense of purpose. He had shed the skin of the man he had pretended to be, embracing the man he was truly meant to be. He had found his way back to himself, to his roots, to his true north. The turning point was not a sudden transformation, but a gradual shift in perspective. It was a journey of self-discovery, a shedding of the false self and an embrace of the true self. It was a return to his roots, a rediscovery of the values and passions that had always been within him. It was a journey guided by love, forgiveness, and a newfound appreciation for the simple things in life. The journey from the depths of despair to a newfound sense of purpose was a transformative one for Daniel. He emerged from the wreckage of his shattered life a changed man, his character tempered by adversity and his spirit renewed by the power of love and forgiveness. The man who had once valued appearances above all else now understood the true meaning of authenticity and the importance of living a life aligned with his values. He had learned the hard way that true wealth lay not in material possessions or social status, but in the richness of human connections and the authenticity of one's own being. He had discovered that the pursuit of a false image, a life built on lies and pretense, ultimately led to emptiness and isolation. The fleeting admiration of strangers, the envy of acquaintances, the hollow praise of social climbers, none of it could fill the void within him, the yearning for genuine connection and self-acceptance. He had come to appreciate the simple joys of life, the beauty of nature, the warmth of community, and the unwavering love of his mother. He had learned to value integrity and honesty, recognizing that true success lay in living a life aligned with his values. He found joy in the everyday moments, a shared meal with his mother, a hike through the woods with friends, a quiet evening spent painting in the attic. He had also learned the importance of forgiveness, both for himself and for others. He had forgiven himself for his past mistakes, acknowledging his flaws and embracing his imperfections. He understood that he was human, capable of making mistakes, but also capable of learning and growing from them. He had forgiven those who had judged and condemned him, understanding that their actions were often rooted in their own insecurities and fears. He recognized that their judgment said more about them than it did about him. He had grown in compassion and empathy, recognizing the struggles of others and offering support without judgment. He had learned to listen with an open heart, to see beyond the surface and to connect with the essence of another's being. He understood that everyone carries their own burdens, their own insecurities, their own struggles. He offered a listening ear, a helping hand, and a compassionate heart to those around him. He had become a more authentic version of himself, shedding the layers of pretense and embracing his true identity. He was no longer afraid to be vulnerable, to show his true colors, to let his light shine. He embraced his strengths and weaknesses, his successes and failures, his joys and sorrows. He was no longer trying to be someone he wasn't, but rather, he was striving to be the best version of himself. He reflected on his journey, acknowledging the pain and the lessons learned. He recognized that his mistakes had led him to a deeper understanding of himself and the world around him. He was grateful for the challenges he had faced, for they had shaped him into the man he was now. He understood that adversity had been his greatest teacher, forcing him to confront his flaws, to reevaluate his values, and to discover his true self. He looked at his mother, her face etched with the wisdom of a life well lived, her eyes filled with unconditional love. He saw in her the strength and resilience that had guided him through his darkest hours. He was filled with gratitude for her unwavering support, for her belief in him even when he had lost faith in himself. He recognized that her love had been his constant anchor, her presence a beacon of hope guiding him back to shore. He was no longer the man who had abandoned his mother, ashamed of his roots and desperate for acceptance. He was a man who embraced his heritage, who cherished his family, and who lived a life guided by truth and integrity. He was a man who had found his way back to himself, a man who had finally come home. He was grateful for the second chance he had been given, the opportunity to rebuild his life, to mend broken relationships, and to make amends for his past mistakes. He was committed to living a life of purpose and meaning, a life that honored his values and reflected his true self. He was determined to make a positive impact on the world, to use his experiences to inspire and guide others, and to leave a legacy of kindness, compassion, and authenticity. 11. Conclusion and theme reinforcement. 552 words. The story of Alara and Daniel serves as a poignant reminder of the enduring power of love, forgiveness, and the importance of living authentically. It is a tale of redemption, of finding one's way back to oneself after losing sight of what truly matters. Daniel's journey highlights the allure and the ultimate emptiness of chasing a false image. His initial pursuit of wealth and social status, fueled by a desire to escape his humble beginnings and gain acceptance in a superficial world, led him down a path of deceit and isolation. He built a life on a foundation of lies, denying his roots and abandoning the people who truly loved him. However, the consequences of his actions, the public exposure of his lies, and the subsequent loss of his carefully constructed life forced him to confront the shallowness of his pursuits. He realized that true happiness and fulfillment could not be found in external validation or material possessions. It was in the depths of his despair, stripped bare of his pretense, that he finally began to see clearly. The unwavering love of his mother, Alara, served as a beacon of hope, guiding him back to his true self. Her quiet strength and unwavering faith in him reminded him of the values he had abandoned and the person he was meant to be. Through her love and support, he began to heal, to forgive himself, and to rebuild his life on a foundation of truth and integrity. The unexpected friendship that blossomed between Alara and Isabella further emphasized the power of human connection and empathy. Their shared experience of betrayal and their mutual love for Daniel created a bond that transcended their differences in age and background. Their friendship became a source of strength and support for both women, demonstrating that genuine connection can arise from the most unexpected circumstances. Daniel's return to his roots, his reconnection with his family and community, and his rediscovery of his passions symbolized a return to authenticity. He found joy and fulfillment in the simple things in life, the beauty of nature, the warmth of human connection, and the pursuit of meaningful work. He learned to value integrity and honesty, recognizing that true success lies in living a life aligned with one's values. The story concludes with a sense of hope and renewal, emphasizing the possibility of redemption and the transformative power of love, forgiveness, and self-discovery. It leaves us with a renewed appreciation for the simple joys of life, the importance of genuine connections, and the enduring strength of the human spirit. It reminds us that no matter how far we stray from our path, we can always find our way back to ourselves, guided by the love of those who truly care for us and the unwavering belief in our own capacity for change and growth. Ultimately, An Elderly Mother's Invitation is a story about the enduring power of love and the transformative journey of self-discovery. It is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the possibility of redemption, even in the face of our own mistakes and the judgment of others. It reminds us that true happiness and fulfillment lie not in external validation or material possessions, but in the authenticity of our own being and the richness of our connections with others.